AITA for moving in with my grandparents and telling my mom I'm done supporting her? I did everything mom asked, even lying to my grandparents. She often prioritized her relationships over me, and when she remarried, she focused more on her husband's kids than on me. When her husband's ex died, she decided to adopt more kids, and I had enough. I asked to live with my grandparents, and now she's upset because I refused to bond with the new kids or help out. I told her I'm done supporting her, and now her husband says I'm being cruel. My mom had me, 16F, when she was 18. My dad was some guy she hooked up with at college, and for years it was just the two of us. She didn't want to go back to her hometown so my grandparents could help us. She didn't even tell them about me for several years, and then used a 6-year-old me to break the news to them. Then not only did she use me to break the news, but she had me ask them if we could stay there for a while, and she coached me to do the puppy dog eyes and make it good. I did all that because she asked. And I was 6. When she wanted me to lie about my father, I did. When she wanted me to lie about where we'd lived before, I did. I did everything she asked. I followed her along eagerly, for the most part, when she was bouncing between guys and putting those relationships before me. I even shared a room with a random baby and toddler when I was 8, because mom's then boyfriend only had one extra room where his kids slept. I tried to speak up once about wanting mom to focus more on me. She figured out what I was going to say and gave me this guilt trip about needing to be put first because she had me so young and how she needed me to get on board. So I never tried again. 4 years ago, she met her husband and dated him online when COVID kept everyone at home. They moved in together 3 years ago and got married 2 weeks after we moved in together. It was him, his 3 kids, and mom and me. His kids spent some time with their mom, but were with us a lot too. I hated it honestly, but for mom, I said nothing. She put more effort into his kids than she did to me, and it stung a lot. They were younger, but so fucking what? I was still her kid too. She treated me more like an older sister by burdening me with her issues and asking me for help with them. So I started spending more time with my grandparents and started to thrive. And then her husband's ex died, and my mom and her husband wanted to take in her other kids, not mom's stepkids. And mom told me they were adopting them all. At that point, I just sort of gave up and asked my grandparents if I could live with them. There were some custody things still being worked out, so I was only living with those other kids a couple of days. Mom was shocked when I told her I wanted to stay with her parents, but she let me, thinking it was temporary. But she's realized after more than a month that I'm serious. She has tried to get me to come and spend time with and bond with the kids and help out around the house. I said no. She said they'll be my official siblings in a year, and we need to give them a good life. I told her no. They'll be her kids, and I won't be because she never treated me like hers. I told her I don't want to give those kids a good life or to be their sister. I don't want to help her or her husband. I don't want to put her first anymore. I told her I'm done supporting her. Mom started crying. Her husband cussed me out and accused me of cruelty and abandoning my family. AITA, relevant comments. Commenter, NTA. Just as your mother has put her needs first, you need to put your needs first. You have no obligation to be her Cinderella so she can pretend she's a good mother. Go live your own life. If you're not already in therapy, as your grandparents to go as your mother's neglect could impact you in the long term in ways you don't expect. OP. I'm not in therapy yet, but it's going to happen in a while. Commenter, NTA, and I would highly recommend telling your grandparents the truth about how you grew up if you haven't already. They should know so that it will strengthen their resolve when your egg donor decides to put up a big stink. OP. They know everything now, including the lies mom coached me to tell and how often she put me in less than great situations. Commenter. Also, the husband blowing up at you is a serious red flag and actually fucking scary. Please do not go back to that house ever. Get child protective services involved if need be and tell everything to the grandparents. I'm so glad you have them. Commenter. Ask your grandparents for help getting your important documents off your mother, things like birth certificate, etc. Also, ask your grandparents to help you check your credit and identity details. You don't want your mother doing something like taking out loans or credit cards in your name. She may not be that kind of person, but it doesn't hurt to err on the side of caution. Story 2. My mother has been shaming me since I got married, and now is trying to marry out my minor daughters. I can't believe I ever had to make a post about my mother, but here we are. My 45F mother, 71F, have a difficult relationship. My mother was an old-school traditional wife. She was a homemaker, never did any work outside the house, and had far more kids than what I think is healthy, 7 girls and 6 boys. She is originally from Guatemala and came to the U.S. when she was 14. She married my father here, had her family here, and tried to make sure myself and my siblings had old-school values, something she really failed at it. Most of my siblings are as far from my mother as humanely possible. 2 of them sadly passed away. I'm the only one that stayed near to take care of my parents, and since Dad died, I've taken my mother's bills so she can live easy. She's always been a dramatic headache, especially when it came to my marriage. She babied my husband, always took his side. I only wanted 1 kid, but my husband wanted as many as biologically possible. He had told me he also only wanted 1 when we talked about marriage. My mother helped him mess with my birth control, so I got pregnant with my youngest. I don't regret my youngest daughter, but after she she was born, I secretly had my tubes tied. My mother always berated me for being faulty since I only had 2 children. That's not counting how she berated me for marrying old. I married at 22. She married at 16. My husband was 49 when he died in a car crash recently. We shared 2 daughters, 14 and 16. He was also having an affair with a girl since 2020. The girl was 24 when she died. Together they had twin boys early this year who thankfully survived the crash. My daughters found out the affair first when their father took them to the hospital to meet the babies and told the girls to keep it secret from me. They didn't, and my husband became abusive towards them and myself. We were in the divorce process when he died. When my husband's affair came out, my mother blamed me. She said it was because I was working woman that didn't please her husband, that I didn't give him enough children, that I was pretty anymore. I'm not going to say I'm super attractive, but I think I look good for my age. I've kept my weight well enough and I look relatively young for my actual age. But no, according to my dear mother, I wasn't good enough for my husband, who needed a girl closer in age to our daughters than to him. She also was on the group of people angry at me when I refused to adopt my husband's affair children. Her newest crazy is she's trying to find husbands for my daughters, mainly focused on my eldest. This crazy plan started this week when my eldest came out to us. I had an idea, and I'm happy she felt comfortable enough in this massive mess we're in to still tell me and her sister. My daughter also decided to tell my mother about it. My mother just ended the call, then called me to scream about how confused and sick my daughter is. She's linked me conversion camps, psychologists that claim homosexuality is a sickness, wackos in my opinion, political articles, etc. She even wanted to see about doing an exorcism. I told her to stop it or she would be in no contact with my in-laws. She stopped for literally 24 hours. Next thing I get is a Facebook message from a man in his mid-20s asking if it was true that I was looking to marry out my 16-year-old daughter. I told him he was sick and blocked him. I got 6 more through the night. Then my mother called saying she found husband prospects for my girls, my high school-aged girls. Angry has been an understatement. She even gave some of these men my daughter's cell phone numbers. We're all getting new phone numbers tomorrow, and I had the girls put their social medias into private. I don't know what part of the brain is broken in my mother's brain. I had the girls block their grandmother in everything, and I'm stopping payments to anything that my mother needs. I know I need to call the cops. I just never thought I would need to call the cops on my own mother. It's been only 2 weeks since I had to cut my in-laws. I'm just exhausted. And please, do not think this is a normal Hispanic thing. It's not. My aunts are amazing women, most of them also homemakers. They are actually on my side of cutting off my mother and calling the cops. They even suggested for my daughters and I to move closer to them in another state. This is just my mother being insane. Small update. We went to the police today, and they took all the information I had. The officer we spoke was incredible and immediately helped my lawyer with all that was needed for a temporary RO. We'll be filing it this week and hopefully get it within the month. After we'll focus on a permanent RO. This is on my mother and any third parties on her behalf. The officer was also kind enough to offer to check on us and our house at least once a day. School has also been notified of the situation, and one of my brothers is going to come live with my daughters and I until we decide if, where, when we move. I can't just up and pack everything since I still have a job and my girls are in the middle of the school year. For now, we're safe, and my girls have new phone numbers. Comments. Commenter. She gave them your daughter's numbers? Call the police. Get them new numbers. I would seriously consider taking the aunts up on their offer. She just put your entire family in danger because she has to be in charge. She's already made your life hell. Now she's targeting your kids. Full-on mama bear time. Commenter. Make a report to Child Protective Services. This is a huge red flag for potential sex trafficking and grooming, amongst other things. She should have legal consequences for this, and at the very least, this could get you a restraining order for the girls to keep Pimp Granny away. Any other children she has access to could be in danger. OP. I'm going tomorrow to the police with my daughters. Commenter. You're doing the right thing. I'm Hispanic too, and I understand how much of a cultural mess this is to deal with. I'm sorry your mother did something so arrogant and selfish that put your family at risk. CPS still needs a report to be made to protect to the other children your mother may have access to. CPS and the police are 2 different agencies. Even if nothing significant comes from the CPS report, it's best to have it as documentation just in case. This is attempted sex trafficking at the very least. I'd be concerned in how far she's taken this and how much further she would go. She's probably sent pictures and info on your girls to these pedophiles. She's already shared contact information. Had she shared your address? Just from your phone number, anyone can find your address online. That can be used to figure out the girls' schools. This has bigger implications and is more of a threat than any loving mother would want to face. I'd be concerned Granny might have gotten something out of trying to marry off your girls. This is a really scary situation to be in, but you're doing the right thing by going to the police. That's the first step in safeguarding your family. OP. I don't know if she's shared my address, which is why I'm staying with my daughters elsewhere. We're doing first the police to have a report to send to CPS for paper trail. Commenter. Make sure your daughter's school do not release them to Granny if she shows up trying to take them. Story 3. AITA for calling my mom and her husband the adults instead of my parents. Whenever I, 15F, talk about my mom and her husband, I call them the adults instead of my parents. It's been 3 years since mom married him. My dad died when I was 6, so it was just me and my mom for years, and then we became a step-family with her husband and his son. I don't dislike him, but I don't really think of him in terms of being my parent. I get that he has a kid, and he's an adult in the home. I already have a dad. A dead one, but still he's my dad. I never call my mom's husband my stepdad or my dad. I don't call him and my mom my parents. It's starting to bother them now. I think it's a lot of him being bothered, but some of my mom too. She told me it's like I don't want us to be an actual family unit, and like I don't trust her to find another good father figure for me. It's not something I say every day. But if someone asks if I can do something, I'll either say I'll ask my mom or the adults. If I'm asked who's at home, I'll sometimes say the adults if I don't say mom and Rick. They sat me down and told me they'd like me to start changing from the adults to saying my parents. Rick said he'd like to hear the parents since I only ever use his first name. He'd like to feel like he's an actual family member instead of just some adult I know. My mom told me my stepbrother doesn't mind, and he's got a mom he lives with half the time. I told them I didn't think I'd ever call them my parents, and if they don't like the adults, I could say mom and Rick, but parents doesn't sound right to me. Mom told me I could trial it out, give it a month, and see if I feel differently after letting it happen. When Rick was out of the room, she told me I could even try bonding with him on a deeper level, so I can feel like he's my parent versus just the guy she married. They heard me say mom and Rick a few days after our talk, and mom told me she was disappointed in me not taking their advice to heart and trying. She told me I'm basically using the adults still over parents, and it's hurtful. AITA, relevant comments. Commenter, NTA. Like you said, you already had a father. Saying the adults is not disrespectful at all. I don't get how important it is for them that you call them parents when they're already parents. It's weird for absolutely nothing. OP. I think it's because I don't accept him the way they wanted me to. Even though I like him, they wanted me to love him and to treat him like he's my new parent. Commenter. The thing is, forcing someone to love you and make you call him in a particular way, it sounds a bit abusive. A bit. It has to be a natural thing, not an obligation. For real, they can move on from that. It's not a big deal. Besides, you didn't disrespect them at all, too. It's not like you called him stepdad, with an emphasis on the word step, which would be meaningful and hurtful. Anyway, you're not the a-hole here. They have to understand your opinion, too, especially when you're 15 now. Commenter. I've never heard kids call their step-parents by anything other than their first names, and I'm in my 60s. My mom and Rick sounds just fine to me. It's not as if you're calling them my mom and the doofus she married or anything like that. Commenter. You don't have to accept him. He's just some dude your mom married and you were almost a teenager when that happened. You don't owe anyone a specific type of relationship, and they obviously don't understand this. I would suggest counseling if they're open to it. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed our videos, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest one. Have a great day.